again from Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 8th of 3rd canto, 2nd verse. So before discussing this verse, let's have a little bit of background. So in the previous chapter, which is 3.7, there is a description about further inquiries by Vidura of different other questions that Vidura asked. Like he presents, like for example, if we give a brief summary, from 1 to 7, Vidura inquires about Ishvara and the Jivas. From 8 to 14, then Maitreya dispelled all the misconceptions about Ishvara and Jiva and recommends bhakti is the way to understand all different things of life, the important things of life. And then from 15 to 22, Vidura shared his heartfelt realization with Maitreya. And then 23 to 38, Vidura's further inquiries, because there was questions about Sarga, Visarga, Manvantara, Gunavataras, Varnashrama, Yoga, Yajna, Jnana, 4 Purusharthas, death rites, charity, austerity, sacrifice, how to completely satisfy the Supreme Lord. All those questions being asked by Vidura. So this chapter starts by Vidura said he will gain knowledge by serving Maitreya, 3.7.18 and 3.7.39. And Maitreya responds to that. He himself is indeed fortunate to get the association of Vidura. So they are appreciating each other. Like, for example, Vidura appreciating Maitreya Muni to be like a spiritual master who is telling all the important essence of life. Now, this particular verse is answer to the question that was posed by Vidura in the chapter, in the 5th chapter, that is 3.5.2. So that verse was Sukhaya Karmani Karoti Loko Natai Sukhavanya Uparamam Va Vindeta Bhuyastavaeva Dukham Yadatra Yuktam Bhagavan Vadenna, which means that, O great sage, everyone in this world engages in fruitive activities to attain happiness, but one finds neither satisfaction nor the mitigation of the distress. So both the things one doesn't get. On the contrary, one is only aggravated by such activities. So normally people engage in different activities to get some pleasure. But on the other hand, what happens is they never get satisfied with that. And distress is not mitigated and distress increases. Please, therefore, the question was, please, therefore, give us direction on how one should live for real happiness. So to answer that question, this is mentioned by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his purport, that to answer this is the verse which is answering everything. And also this is the verse which will answer all other questions also. That's what he says. In his commentary, he says that answers to all your questions are found in Bhagavad Purana. So this verse is also glorifying Bhagavad Purana. And then the famous disciple, I'll tell you the glories of the word. The famous disciple of Parashara. So Maitreya Muni is a famous disciple of Parashara, who is father of Vyasadeva. And Parashara Muni had spoken this to him before. So that's what is mentioned by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So I spoke this work to remove the suffering of all the men who have fallen into great distress for insignificant material pleasure. That's what Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says. So now coming back to this verse, let's recite this verse and then we would discuss more about this verse. So let's recite. Soham nrinam shulla shukhaya dukkham.
Soham nrinam shulla sukhaya dukkham.
Again, this line again. Soham nrinam shulla sukhaya dukkham.
Soham nrinam shulla sukhaya dukkham.
Mahadgatanam viramaya tasya.
Mahadgatanam viramaya tasya.
Pravartaye bhagavatam puranam.
Pravartaye bhagavatam puranam.
Yada sakshad bhagavan rishibhyah.
यदा साक्षात् भगवान् ऋषिभ्यः.
One more time. Soham nृणाम क्षुल्ल सुखाय दुःखम.
सोऽहं नृणां क्षुल्लसुखाय दुःखम्
महद्गतानां विरमाय तस्य.
महद्गतानां विरमाय तस्य
प्रवर्तये भागवतं पुराणम्.
प्रवर्तये भागवतं पुराणम्
यदाह साक्षात् भगवान् ऋषिभ्यः.
यदा साक्षात् भगवान् ऋषिभ्यः.
More time. Soham nृणाम क्षुल्ल सुखाय दुःखम्.
सोऽहं नृणां क्षुल्लसुखाय दुःखम्
महद्गतानां विरमाय तस्य.
महद्गतानां विरमाय तस्य
प्रवर्तये भागवतं पुराणम्.
प्रवर्तये भागवतं पुराणम्
यदाह साक्षात् भगवान् ऋषिभ्यः.
यदा साक्षात् भगवान् ऋषिभ्यः.
So these three voluntary recitations. Thank you.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Soham Rinam Chulla Sukhaya Dukkham.
सोऽहं नृणां क्षुल्लसुखाय दुःखम्
Mahadgatanam Viramaya Tasya.
महद्गतानां विरमाय तस्य.
Pravartaye Bhagavatam Puranam.
प्रवर्तये
भागवतं पुराणम्
Yadaha Sakshat Bhagavan Rishibhyaha.
यदा
साक्षात् भगवान् ऋषिभ्यः.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Mataji.
हरे कृष्ण प्रभु.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Please.
सोऽहं नृणां क्षुल्लसुखाय दुःखम्
Soham nृणाम क्षुल्ल सुखाय दुःखम्.
महद्गतानां विरमाय तस्य
महद्गतानां विरमाय तस्य.
प्रवर्तये भागवतं पुराणम्
प्रवर्तये भागवतं पुराणम्.
यदा ह्य साक्षात् भगवान् ऋषिभ्यः.
यदा साक्षात् भगवान् ऋषिभ्यः. Yeah, one more. Okay. So then we can discuss now. Okay. So here it says in this verse, and this is being spoken by Maitreya Muni to Vidura, and answering the question that even though people do so many activities, fruitive activities in their life, instead of mitigating their distress, it increases their distress. Tell something, some solution to this, like misery, how they can be happy. They can, their distresses are, they are out of their distress. They are peaceful. They are more happy. So that was the question which was asked in the 5th chapter and is now answered here. So, Soham Nidam, Kshanla Khulla Shukaya Dukkham. So this Nidam means of persons. Kshulla Shukaya means, Kshulla means very little, for little time, the Sukha. Sukha is for very little time. And Dukkha Mahadgatana. Dukkha Mahad means very, Dukkha means distress. The distress is so much, but only little bit of Sukha. So how Viramaya means to give Viram to that. It means for mitigation, what we have to do. Tasya Viramaya. What we have to do? Pravartaye Bhagavatam Puranam Yadaha Sakshat Bhagavan Rishibhya. So Yada, let's do this way. Yadaha means to spoken by whom? Sakshat Bhagavan, whom? To the Rishis, to the learned sages. It was being told. What is told? Bhagavad Purana. If somebody pravartana means to go according to Bhagavatam. or in the beginning. Pravartaye, there may be two meanings, in the beginning, or it has been told before by Bhagavan. So what one has to do, let's read the purport and we would, read the translation and we would get the gist of this verse.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Let me now begin speaking on the Bhagavata Purana, which was directly spoken to the great sages by the personality of Godhead for the benefit of those who are entangled in extreme miseries for the sake of very little pleasure.
Thank you, Prabhuji. So now you can see that little pleasure is for all the fruitive activities, but it is giving them extreme miseries, as was the question by Vidura. So now Maitreya Rishi is answering, like saying, now start speaking on Bhagavad Purana, which was directly spoken by the Sakshat Bhagavan to the Rishis. It will be spoken, okay, for the benefit of those. So for benefit of all of us. So this question, normally Vidura is a very enlightened devotee. He would have asked so many deep questions into the philosophy. But why did he ask this kind of question? He asked the question for all of us so that we can actually get purified or understand. So that's why the question was asked. Otherwise, he would have asked so detailed, like so deep topics in the spirituality. But he asked this simple question: how the things that actually meant to give happiness in our life is giving more distress. And more we are engaged in fruitive activities, more and more one gets entangled, and that's why the distress increases. One thinks that he is getting like a lot of happiness, but it is a very little happiness, but extreme miseries at the end because of the results of that. And why that is this? Why that is so? Because when something is in the material plane, our body, our nature is spiritual. Our body is material, but our nature, as the soul, is spiritual, and we are spirit souls. So we cannot be happy with material things or material activities, but we're trying to find happiness there. But when we connect ourselves with the devotees of the Lord, who speak the glories of the Lord, who is all merciful, all powerful Lord, and who is the source of all happiness, then those distresses are all taken away. So Srimad Bhagavatam is one way to enter into that mercy of the Lord. So let's read the purport.
The sage Maitreya proposed to speak on Srimad Bhagavatam because it was specially compiled and traditionally comes down in the disciplic succession for the solution of all the problems of human society. Only one who is fortunate can have the opportunity to hear Srimad Bhagavatam in the association of pure devotees of the Lord. Under the spell of material energy, the living entities are entrapped in the bondage of many difficulties simply for the sake of a little bit of material happiness. They engage in fruitive activities, not knowing the implications. Under the false impression that the body is the self, the living entities foolishly relate to so many false attachments. They think that they can engage with materialistic paraphernalia forever. This gross misconception of life is so strong that a person suffers continually, life after life, under the external energy of the Lord. If one comes in contact with the book of Bhagavatam as well as with the devotee Bhagavata, who knows what the Bhagavatam is, then such a fortunate man gets out of the material entanglement. Therefore, Sri Maitreya Muni, out of compassion for the suffering men in the world, proposes to speak on the Srimad Bhagavatam first and last. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Coach. So Srila Prabhupada starts here with the purport saying that he is proposing to speak, Maitreya Rishi is proposing to speak on Srimad Bhagavatam because it was specially compiled and it was transferred through disciplic succession, like Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavatam was also transferred through disciplic succession from the Supreme Lord himself. One thing very important, Srila Prabhupada says, only one who is fortunate enough can have the opportunity to hear Srimad Bhagavatam in the association of pure devotees of the Lord. So who is fortunate in Bhagavatam here when we are discussing here? So it is Vidura who is fortunate. It is Maitreya who is telling Bhagavatam who is also fortunate. It is Shukadeva Goswami who is discussing this to Parikshit Maharaj. And also it is the sages of Naimisharanya who are hearing from Sutta Goswami. So all are fortunate to hear Srimad Bhagavatam in the association of pure devotees. That's so beautifully being said here. And this is an opportunity for all of us also, because we are associating by Srila Prabhupada by reading his purports and the way it is there in Srimad Bhagavatam. And we are associating with Srila Prabhupada by discussing among us. So that is our fortune, we can say. Under the spell of material energy, the living entities are entrapped in the bondage of many difficulties. So as I was mentioning that we are entrapped because we have to do so many activities to do to take our life, and then to get some material happiness, we are so much endeavoring for it. And it is true, and it happens. And then we engage in fruitive activities. Fruitive activities means those activities that will bear fruit. That's why it's called fruitive activity. Bear fruit means you do some activity, you get some results out of it, good or bad. Mostly we think we are getting prosperity or something. But the implication of says Prabhupada here clearly says, under the false impression that the body is the self, we think our body is everything. But whatever we have done, whatever happiness we have acquired through entire life, but once the body goes, we don't have any access to those things. So then it says that this happiness that we are hankering for is temporary. It is for some time only, and will not give the pleasure for all the time. For example, even if we get something in the we get happiness for a little while, but it actually the graph goes down. If you always analyze that, how many times you can keep that happiness going? Then we look for do something more to get that happiness again. So that's why it's a false impression, as Srila Prabhupada says. They think that they can engage in materialistic paraphernalia forever. Forever, nobody can be engaged, because the time will come when we have to leave. This gross misconception of life is so strong that a person suffers continually, life after life. Now, not only this life, when because of that attachment, then another body is given to this living entity, and he goes into another life, lives his life, and then go into another life. And this life after life, this cycle goes on under the direction of the external energy of the Lord. But if one comes in contact with the book Bhagavatam, which we are now discussing, as well as the devotee Bhagavatam, which actually here there are so many devotee Bhagavatas that I previously mentioned, and we are associated with Srila Prabhupada here, who knows that Bhagavatam, what the Bhagavatam is, and then such a fortunate man gets out of the material entanglement. So Maitreya Muni is very compassionate, and he wanted to tell Srimad Bhagavatam, and even Vidura, who is more compassionate, ask those questions so that Maitreya Muni would say. So it is like both ways it is going, the mercy is flowing on. So with this verse, what we understand that by listening and by applying Bhagavatam in our life, not only by listening, but by applying it and by doing our devotional activity in the association of devotees, what will happen? Our material distresses are all gone at some point, because bhakti is a process that when actually in the Nectar of Devotion, Rupa Goswami says the first symptom is the distress goes a little down. You might feel that as it progresses, and at one point you're out of distress. One becomes so much elevated, then distress doesn't impact him. He is always happy. So by just hearing Kshana Shukhaya, Shulla Shukhaya, Mahadgata, Dukha Mahad. So to go out of that, we have to read and understand and apply in our life Srimad Bhagavatam and the teachings of Srimad Bhagavatam. And how we can do? By knowing more about the Bhagavatas who are being described in this, and then the Bhagavata who is describing this Bhagavata to all of us. So just I'll pause here and we can discuss any reflections.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yeah, thank you for the beautiful shloka and the explanation, Prabhu. So